Okay, right now when we're recording this, so it's now December 24th. So in the Goyish world, this is known as Christmas Eve. So I thought it would be appropriate to talk about what that has to do with Judaism and Chassidim in general, especially, and the different customs relating to this day. So there's a lot to talk about. First of all, I want to speak about just like the fact that you might have noticed that I just said the word Christmas, and some people don't do that. Some people, they do Xmas or Krachtsmacht or other different variations, and they don't want to say the word. So I want to speak about that for a moment. So really, there's a problem. There's a problem. It says in the Torah in Parshas Mishpatim, "V'shem Elohim acharim lo tazkiru lo yishama al picha," that you shouldn't mention other gods. Okay, you shouldn't say the names of other gods. Okay, that itself is an issue. So because of this, there's people that refuse to say Jesus, they refuse to say Christ, and so what's up with this? Is this a thing or is this not a thing? Okay, so first of all, there's two things. Jesus and Christ is two different questions. Is it a problem to say the word Jesus? Is it a problem to say the word Christ? So Jesus. So we know that J is somehow takes the place of Y, right? The things which were originally Yud, so they turned into J, like Yerushalayim turned into Jerusalem, etc. So Yaakov turned to Jacob, like it's a normal thing. So the name of Hashem even, like they turned that with a J. So the original name, like the Jesus' name, he was not. His parents didn't. His father, or there's a question if he was like who his father really was, because if you made up a story about a virgin birth, so chances are that there's a reason why you didn't think that it was your husband's child. So whoever named him, so they didn't name him Jesus. They named him Yeshua, which is some kind of adaptation of Yehoshua, the first the student of Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, the pasuk in Nehemiah actually refers to Yeshua as Yeshua. So I mean, it's the same idea. It's the same shorish. There's nothing Christian about the word Yeshua. It just means salvation. That's the same. For the same reason that Yehoshua's parents called him actually Hosea. So for the same reason, so they thought it was a nice name. Salvation sounds like a good name. So it's actually very interesting that what's missing in Yeshua? The hey, which right. is and the hey, that is the letter that when Hashem wanted to give Abraham a Jewish name, so he said, let's add a hey to your name. So when he took away, Yeshua, so Jesus, so when he was named, he was like Yeshua, just without the hey. So that's just a thought to ponder. But anyway, so his name was Yeshua, and the question is that is that called an other God? So everybody knows that in the Christian church, so in the Catholic Church, in the Baptist Church, and different many brands of Christianity, so they believe that Jesus is God. They believe in the Trinity, which means that Jesus is God, which would make Jesus a deity, which would make it theoretically a problem to say his name, because it says V'shem Elohim acharim lo tazkiru, that you're not allowed to say the names of other gods. Okay, so that is actually not the case because of a comment of no less than the Vilna Gaon. It's actually before the Vilna Gaon. He's quoting from the Hagais Memanias, coming from the Rishonim. He writes in Siman Kuf Mem Zayin, which is in Shulchan Aruch, where it talks about the fact that you're not allowed to speak about mention the names of other gods. So it says, Shed Kasav Re'em She'ein Isra Ela Shema Nitan La L'Shem Elokus, that it's only a problem on the name which was given as a deity. So to talk about like a god in a name that was given to a god, like Zeus, like things like that. So it's forbidden to speak about those names. Aval Shem had yotis afapishasu aloha, but if a guy he was just a normal name, he was just John, but they made him into a god, and you're just calling him by his name. So afapishasu aloha came shebazar Shem and ba'alohos ve'adnos v'gam leitin l'Shem gach muter. So the problem is only a name of a deity, but a name of a human being they happen to turn the human being into a god. So then that is not an issue. Okay, so it's very clear, and he brings a proof. That so he quotes for the Yishanim that if you look through the Shas, so many times they mention Jesus' name. They mention how they call it in Hebrew. It's called in the Gemara, in the Talmud. It's called Yeshu HaNoitzri. Yeshu HaNoitzri is mentioned many times in the Shas. So you see very clearly that Chazal had no issue calling him Yeshu. Now, some note that Yeshu is actually not his name. So from the fact that it says in Chazal, from the fact that it says in the Talmud Yeshu, so maybe they specifically didn't call him Yeshua, which was his actually given name, because they wanted to change it. So that a person could argue. Now, it is clear that they did call him Yeshu. I don't know exactly when that came. There are those that say that Yeshu like stands for Yemach Shemo V'Zichro. That it's like they wanted to call him Yeshu because it's like a way of like belittling him.
What about Yoshki?
So Yashka, I don't know where Yashka comes from. In Yiddish, you say Yashka. So I don't know that that's. I couldn't find. I looked for that. I looked for what is the etymology of the name Yashka, and it doesn't seem to be a way of putting him down. So I don't really know what's the difference between Yeshu and Yashka. Like I always thought that like you really from people don't say Jesus, they only say Yashka, and I assumed that meant that it's a way of putting him down. But I couldn't find any source that Yashka is any term of belittling. Okay, it seems to be just like a Russian term for Yeshua. It seems to be like just a Russian form of Yeshua. So I don't really know. I don't really know if there's something holy about Yashka. I didn't mean that. I mean about calling him Yashka as opposed to Yeshu. Okay. I just know that like in Yiddish, like that is a more common term. They don't say Jesus. So. However, a person could say that even though the Vilna Gaon brings a raya from the Mordechai brings a raya from the fact that in Shas many times it says Yeshu, so one could argue that that's not really his real name. But the fact is that in the Rambam, in 3 places, in Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Gimel, in Melachim, Perek Yud Aleph, and in Avodah Zarah, Perek Yud, so over there he actually calls him by his real name, Yeshua, which was his given name. So we see from the Rambam that it clearly wasn't an issue, and obviously the rationale is stated already by the Mordechai and the Rein that the problem of saying the name of a god is only a name that was given to a god, but not the name that human beings gave it to a human being, and just happens to be that afterwards they turned him into a god. The fact is, actually, with Jesus, it happens to be that they only made him into a god long after he was dead. Okay, it was only like hundreds of years later that they turned him. The whole Christianity, it really started hundreds of years after he passed away. So anyway, so Yeshu. So to say the word Jesus, so certainly is a problem. Is not a problem. That's clear in the Gra. Now, what about Christ? So in this, there's a tshuva from Reb Ezriel Hildesheimer, who was a big Rav in Germany. That we have a lot of Hakar Satayv to him. It's because of Reb Ezriel that he permitted Kol Isha if it's mixed singing. Okay, and the Brisker Rav said that the person that wants to be lenient like that, so that he was like Reb Ezriel Hildesheimer was a big enough guy that he can rely on him, and that's what like many communities, even though like in Harnof they don't do like that, but it's a common leniency. So he has a tshuva. Somebody asked Reb Ezriel about a certain teacher that was teaching in their school in Germany that he would say the word Jesus, and they never heard of such a thing, that a Jewish person saying the word Jesus in passing, and so they wanted to fire him and take him away from the job. So they asked Reb Ezriel, is this okay or is this not okay? And so he brings from the Vilna Gaon, and he says that it's okay. However, he says, but what about But what about Christ? Christ is more problematic, he writes. Because Christ, what does Christ mean? Christ, now this is interesting. I once asked this to Rav Nebenzahl. When I was younger, I was used to go to him to the kotel on Shabbos and speak to him a lot. So I asked him once about this, and he said that Rav Nebenzahl said that to say Christ is not a problem because Christ just means Mashiach. So it's certainly not the name of God. It just means that he is anointed. Okay, so.
Is that literally what the word means?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like just Latin word.
Mm-hmm. So the word Christ just means anointed. So therefore,
Like christened.
I mean, christened was adapted after has a connotation to Christianity. It means christened, right? But we're talking about before that. So when they were calling Jesus that he was anointed, that he was like something special, that he's the Messiah, whatever. So that's why they called him Christ as the Savior, as the Messiah. Okay, so that Rav Nebenzahl thought that that's a reason why it's certainly yes, okay. However, Rabbi Israel says that is a problem because to call him Christ is to say that he's something special, because like he's not anointed. We know that he was just like a bad Jew. You know, he was struggling. He had issues with authority, and he had like problems with Emunas Chachamim, and that's why he rebelled, and that's why we killed him. No, no, we didn't kill him ourselves. We gave him to the Romans to kill him, but to say anointed, to say the Messiah certainly is giving him some importance that is inappropriate. Okay, so even though it's not a problem of the prohibition in the Torah of V'Shem Elohim Achirim Leisaskiru per se, but it's a different problem because you're giving chashivos to something which is tummy. Okay, so that's why it's better not to call him Jesus Christ, but it's okay to call him Jesus. Jesus is just the name. His name is given name. It's not a problem. He was a human being like everybody else, so it's not a problem to say the word Jesus. But it is problematic, according to Rebbe Ziel, to say Christ. Now I saw brought on from Rav Shachter that he also says that you should not say Christ. This is in Shuvas Rebbe Ziel Siman Kuf Pei. Yes.
Is it a problem to say Christ just like that? Because it technically means anointed, means Mashiach, no?
Right, but if you're using it in reference to Jesus,
right,
then it's a problem.
If you're using it in reference to him.
Why would you say anybody else is Christ? You're going to say that Yeshua was Christ?
No.
No, I mean saying Yeshua ben Nun. I'm saying you're going to say that David HaMelech was Christ? It's true, he was anointed, but like, why would you say that? Nobody says that.
Well, in case you were speaking to some English-speaking people.
Nah. You say anointed. You don't say. It doesn't. There's no. It would be weird to say that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now, but I do want to know. And this is something that really, really irks me. Mm-hmm. That the people sometimes they don't even realize what they're saying. They don't even realize that it's some habit. It's some habit that they picked up from movies, and that is that something crazy happens, and they say either "Jeez," or they even say Jesus, like something amazing, like they never saw such a huge, I don't know, like a huge car, and they say, "Whoa, Jesus!" And that is horrible. That is mamish horrible. Because why are they saying it? That to say Jesus in that context that's an adaptation of, oh my God. Okay, so the reason why you're saying Jesus is because is instead of God. So that's horrible. That is mamish to use G, and even to say Jesus is because Jesus is just a kitzur for Jesus. Right. So that is mamish horrible. That is treating Jesus like a deity. So that I think is a horrible avera. So anybody who's like has that habit should certainly like be conscious of it and stop. Because that's really treating the name as a deity, which is really severe.
What about saying it in a more negative context? Because sometimes people use it when something is very bad.
No. You're using it because as a form of oh my God. Uh-huh. Okay. We also don't say oh my God, by the way, because we don't want to say Hashem's name. We say Gash. Guess ask my 3-year-olds. They don't speak English, but they say, oh my gosh. Then,
what about singing it?
Hmm?
What about singing?
Singing what?
Jesus Christ,
Even worse. Even worse.
Cover your ears, Rabbi.
You never heard that?
It's a musical.
You think you are. No.
No. Glad we clarified that. Okay. So now the problem is to say Christ as a reference to Jesus. However, what if you're not using the word as a reference to Jesus? You're just using it as a reference to something else, such as the holiday, such as Christmas. Okay, that's not a problem because the whole problem is really. Now, the truth is that once upon a time it was problematic to say the names of Goyish holidays, not the Mishnah and Avodah Zarah. However, this is a halacha in Siman Kuf Mem Ches in Yeridea that it was a problem to mention the names of the Goyish holiday, the names of Goyish holidays. But then the Shulchan Aruch writes at the very end of the Siman, and in Kuf Mem Ches halacha Yud Beis, yesh oimim she'en kol dvarim elu amurim ela ba'isei zman. That these halachas of not to say Goyish holidays, that was only back in the times of Chazal. Aval b'zman hazeh einam b'kiyum b'tiv alilim. But nowadays they aren't really. They're just doing it they're cultural Christians. They're not the real thing. So that's why it's not such a problem, and therefore it's all the halachas that it says about regarding Goyish holidays don't apply nowadays. Now the Rama on this halacha goes even further to say that there's another reason why it's okay, and that is v'oid de'isbe b'zayv mishum eva shim nafesh atzmeina mehem b'yom chag v'anishurim b'neim tzrichim lasis mehem kol hashana. That if we refrain from like dealing with them at all, so then they're going to think that we're anti-Christian, and they're going to hate us, and they're going to lose our parnasa, and we have to be concerned that it's going to mess us over. Okay, and they might even become more anti-Semitic. So then therefore he writes, that amazing chiddush, that if you come into the city and they're in the middle of a Christmas party, so yismach imam, you can like head bob with them because you're scared that if you go like this, like that, no, I hate this Christmas stuff, that you're the Grinch. Is that the word? Is that right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be the Jewish Grinches, so then they're going to say, "Oh, those Jews, they hate us. Let's kill them." So that's why he says it's permitted. However, he writes, but nevertheless, says the Rama, if possible, if you're a spiritual holy person, you should avoid this, and you should try to get away and not have to go through their party in order not have to bob your head at a Christmas party. And just by avoiding them, then nobody will notice that you're not celebrating their parties. Okay, so it's very clear. It's very clear that you're not allowed to go to Christmas parties, in case you didn't know. Okay, some people don't know. Like that, but you're actually not allowed to go to Christmas parties. But if there's a problem of that, if you're not going to celebrate, that they're going to think that you're anti-Christian, and it's going to bring anti-Semitism. So the Rama goes so far as to say that you can even like somewhat join their party. Okay. So now the next question, that once we have this halacha that you're allowed to, that the halachas of Goyish holidays don't apply to Christmas. So now the question is, this is what we spoke about earlier. The question is that what about saying to a Christian Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas? So what is the halacha for that? So when you're saying Merry Christmas, so what are you really saying?
Well done.
So you're acknowledging the fact that they have a holiday. So now, what are you? The problem is that is there a problem for them to be happy on their holiday? No. So the problem is really just that you're saying the holiday, and we just said that there's not a problem to say the name of the holiday, right? So really, halachically speaking, so there's no problem with even telling a guy Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas. However, it's an old custom that we don't do that, and the and so in America, in Europe, it was always the custom just to say Happy Holidays. It happens to be the last year, I was appalled that there was a big sign at the entrance to the old city that the Jerusalem municipality wishes a Happy Holidays to all of their Christian guests. And I thought that I was disgusted by that. Like, hello, like this is our Jewish state. All the Christians can like go to their countries. Go back where you came from. You know. And
that's what they're saying. That's what they're telling us.
I was telling somebody that what the pro-Palestinian people say is that what should you do with the Jews? Like the river to the sea. River to the sea. Where are the Jews? They should go back where they came from. So somebody wrote. So somebody said Zionism, a noun. The idea that the Jewish people should go back where they came from. Right?
Yes, that's true.
So,
what about those? Because now it's just a cultural thing, right? So just because in America, especially in America, but all over the world, but in America it's a big thing. It's just a holiday. So the Jews are just.
I'm saying that halachically speaking, you're allowed to wish a person a happy Christmas, and it's a normal custom, and it's an accepted custom, and because it's a custom, it's a proper thing to not say Happy Christmas, but rather to say Happy Holidays. And then,
what about a party that happens on Christmas just because it's Siba le Mesiba, just because?
Right, you're allowed. So you're allowed to go to a Sheva Brachas. You're allowed to go to Sheva Brachas. That like Rav Moshe Feinstein does write that if it's possible if you have a bar mitzvah. If you have a bar mitzvah that's supposed to be on Christmas night, so then it's better if you can push it off. But if they didn't push it off, so it's not that you're not allowed to go to a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a sheva brachas. You're not allowed. You're allowed to go to the party, and because you're not celebrating Christmas, you're celebrating the bar mitzvah. But if it's possible that nobody should think, I think Ramesh was talking about more in America. I think in Israel, I think nobody would think that if you have a sheva brachas on Christmas, I don't think anybody would think that it's a Christmas party. But certainly to go to Tel Aviv to have a Christmas party, that is mamish asur because that's mamish celebrating a Goyish holiday. Mm-hmm. That's not what it says. Like what it says over here is that you're allowed to mention the holiday, not that you're allowed to celebrate the holiday. Yes.
The idea of singing it, we have musicals, stage shows called JC Superstar. So it's the stage context as in theatre.
Did you ask me this already?
I asked you similar, but I didn't put it on the stage. Now it's on the stage.
I think that's even worse. You're doing an Avera on stage.
Well, the theatre domain is a different domain than amongst the public. In theatre, a lot of things...
Nope, sorry.
What about watching an Xmas movie? Not on Xmas Day. Just in general, like Home Alone, like technically an Xmas movie. Like, would watching also be an Avera, or?
Not getting into whether or not it's a good thing to watch movies in the first place, but but I don't think that's an issue at all.
Okay.
I don't think that's an
Not
issue at all.
that I watch non-Jewish movies, but
Right.
for the general public.
Okay. Now, so now that we verified that it's okay to talk about Christmas. Okay. So now what is relevant to us? What is relevant to us about Christmas? So by the way, so I want to start with that. If you want to know the halachas of Christmas, so in halacha, it's not called Christmas. What's it called? It's called Nittel. It's called Nittel. Now it's very fascinating the history of it being called Nittel. So in different perushim, so they give different. They give different the Shem Shema and the chassidic sources. The Bnei Yissaschar, he talks about the Nittel, that it's not clear if it's supposed to be written with a tes or with a taf. Okay, Nittel with a taf means that he was hung. It's referring to the crucifixion, obviously. Yeah. Okay, that's the day of the guy who was hung, the guy who was crucified. By the way, I heard from Rabbi Singer that he told me where it started. The idea that they put nails into his hands, that it's unlikely that they actually did that. That it was much more common in Roman culture to just tie him up, and so he was just hung up. So it's like literally that he was hung up, and that like, the crucifixion was simply being hung up. That was why that was how they would just hung him up and let him just starve to death.
They wanted to be particularly nasty. Then.
No, it wasn't because they wanted to be nicer. It was simply it wasn't practical because it would fall if they would just the skin wasn't. They wanted him to stay up. That was the whole point, for him to be humiliated. So if they would just put nails, then the skin wasn't strong enough to keep his body up.
Why would you put
So,
them? Are they so gross?
I don't think they minded there being gross. I think the issue was simply that they wanted him to stay up, and so just if they would break his skin, then he would just rip and just fall. Whereas if they would tie him up, then it would be more practical. So that's why it makes a lot of sense that Nittel with a tav means that he was taloi, that he was the one that he was hung up. He was hung up. The Nittel with a tes means that he was removed, meaning removed from our midst. We got rid of him. We got rid of him. So being the same point. Now, what's fascinating about this is that these are actually more like apologetics, but it's much more likely, it's almost definite that it was called Nittel for a different reason, and that is that the word that in Latin, so Christmas was called Natali Domino, okay, which is actually a very relevant thing, that because there's a name, there's a common name, Natalie, Natalia, I believe Natasha is also connected to this. So it's not a good name. It's not a good name. Natalia Domino means Natalia means birthday. Domino means the Lord.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a reference to so Natalia Domino is the birthday of the Lord, which is a reference to what they think that that Jesus was born on Christmas. And the name Natalie or Natalia as a name was always given. It was customarily given to girls, specifically born around Christmas time, and it's a reference to Christmas. So basically, it's not a good name. It's a Christmas name. It's a Christmassy name. So it's a Christian name. So it's not a good name. I think that if you have this name, you should try to go get a Hebrew name. And try to change it from Natalie. I have a student whose name is Natalia, that I had this conversation with her, and she told me that she spoke to some Rebbitzin, Kabbalistic Rebbitzin, and the Rebbitzin told her that no, Natalia means that raised by God, because like Nitila, like Nitilat Yadayim, Natalia is Natalia. And I said, like, okay, that's very cute, but like, the fact is that that's not what the name means. Like that's like you you could say the exact same thing that you call a kid Jesus, because it really means Yeshua. Which like the fact is that Jesus is a Christian name. So it's like it doesn't really help to give it to convert it to Judaism. The fact is that for who knows how long. Almost 1,000 years, maybe more than 1,000 years. So Natalie or Natalia has been a Christian name referring to Christmas. So
in Italian, it's still called Natale.
What is?
Christmas
is called Natalia. There you go. Yeah, no, it's clear. If you look up if you look up in Google, what's the source of the name Natalia, it'll say Christmas. It's very clear that that's what the name means. So because that's what the name means, that's because Christmas is birthday, the birthday of the Lord. That's why that's the name Nittel, that it's found in the Rishonim. When halacha talks about Christmas, it calls it Nittel. So it's not actually talking about the fact that he was crucified. It's just simply a reference to the birthday. Okay, so we're talking about Nittel. So what's the halachas of Nittel? So it's a there's a custom. There's a custom that's brought down, not to learn Torah the night of Nittel. Okay. Now. Meaning tonight or tomorrow? Tomorrow. Meaning tonight. Now it's not so clear when is Nittel.
Don't learn Torah.
No, don't learn Torah. This is a day it's brought down. It's brought down in many sources. We'll get to how early the sources were, but the custom is not to learn Torah the night of Nittel. Now, when exactly is Nittel? This is a matter of dispute. because when is Christmas celebrated? This is actually a dispute between the Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox Church, because the truth is it's not a machlokes when he was born. The truth is that the January 7th is when Christmas is celebrated in the Greek Orthodox Church, and the truth is that in the Gregorian calendar, that was December 25th in the Julian calendar was what's called now January 7th. Okay, that in 1582, so they changed the secular calendar from what's called the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. What we have now is called the Gregorian calendar,
Right.
and they took out 15 days, and they just, I don't know why, they made the year shorter, and so January 7th. So December 25th. It was always December 25th, but the actual December 25th. Because they took out days of December, so December ended earlier, and the 25th day of December actually fell out on January 7th.
So to make it a little more accurate, the Gregorian calendar.
So that's why the Greek Orthodox Church is actually just carrying over what the day that they would always celebrate as Christmas, which was always December 25th, but now the new December 25th is actually what is called January 7th. Okay, so that's why in the Greek Orthodox Church, so they're going to be celebrating Christmas on January 7th. Okay. And so in some Chassidim, they're more machmer on the night of January 6th than they are on December 24th, going into December 25th, because that's the real Christmas. Okay, and so there's even customs on then that some people even from like chatzos hayom, from midday until midnight, it's more of a thing. Okay, now so that's a very interesting thing. Now, so the question is, like in the rest of in the Catholic world, like most of America is Catholic. Like I think the Greek Orthodox Church is mostly in Russia, right? But in American, everyone is Catholic, or everyone is celebrating Christmas on December 25th on our calendar. So most people weren't even aware of this thing. They know that December 25th is Christmas, but the Lubavitch Rebbe said an interesting point, and that is that it's actually not dependent on what it's supposed to be. It's actually dependent on when they celebrate it. Okay, so in a couple of minutes we'll talk about what is actually the rationale behind not learning Torah on Christmas, and then we'll see if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so what's very interesting is that what most people think is Christmas Eve is actually not Christmas Eve in the first place. It's really supposed to be January 7th.
Are we gonna tell them?
Don't ruin it for them.
Did he have
Okay.
a Hebrew birthday as well?
Like some people they celebrate Chol Hamoed from their English birthday to their Hebrew birthday. So okay. So a couple of points. So what's the custom? The custom that we have, the custom that is brought down is not to learn Torah on the night of Christmas, on the night of Nittel, whenever Nittel is actually supposed to be. Where does this come from? So nowadays, it's known in the world. The reason why we know about it today is because it's a chassidic custom. Okay, the yeshivish world just didn't accept this custom. Okay, interestingly, the Stipler, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, he actually was careful on Nittel. I didn't note in the books that brought it down which Nittel it was. If it was January 6th or 20th. The Stipler.
Who's this?
Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, Rabbi Yaakov Kanievsky.
And he's not Chassidic.
He was like a nephew of the Chazon Ish. He was very Litvish, but yet he was careful not to learn Nittel, because he was very spiritual and he had Ruach HaKodesh. I don't think that's why. He told people the reason was because it would be Maris Ayin, because he didn't want the Chassidim to look at him like a shegetz. Like he didn't want them to look at him like he's doing an Avera. So what he would do was that he would learn by heart. He wouldn't learn Sfarim. He wouldn't open up Sfarim. He would learn, He would learn,
By heart.
but he would learn by heart. So it wouldn't appear to a person looking at him, it wouldn't appear that he's learning. Okay, so he was like respectful of this custom. But in general, it wasn't a thing. In general, it wasn't a thing by the Litvish. It was only a thing by Chassidim. And so this led some to believe that the custom actually only started by the time of the Chassidim. Now, that's clearly not true. It's clearly not true that it started by Chassidim. The Baal Shem Tov himself lived in the 1700s, and we have sources from the 1600s that this was already a thing before Chassidus existed. Okay, and this is from a sefer called Makor Chaim, which is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch from the Chavas Yair, Rav Yair Bachrach. Okay, so already in the 1600s it's brought down that there was this custom not to learn Torah.
It was never halachical. It was from Mekubalim.
It was a custom. It was a custom. They didn't talk about why.
Okay.
Like in the early sources, we don't know why. However, some argue that they did find in mamish ancient things in Goyish sources, that in the protocols of Vermaisa, which was one of the Christian places in France where the Crusades took place, that on Christmas night it was prohibited not only to leave the ghetto, but it was prohibited to leave your house. It was prohibited for the Jews to leave their house. Okay, so it makes a lot of sense that it was dangerous, that they would be killed. If they would leave their house, then they would be killed. So that's why they had this custom that we don't learn Torah, because if there would be a mitzvah to learn Torah, then they would come to the shir, and then they would endanger their lives. And that's why they just made it like that. Guys, we don't learn Torah Nittel, so then like their lives are going to be safe. Obviously, if this is the rationale, so clearly.
Depends on when it's celebrated.
So clearly nowadays it's fine. And there's no issue whatsoever, because nowadays, Baruch Hashem, nobody's killing us for learning Torah. Okay. Okay. So now, in the literature about the understanding why. So the first one to speak about this is the Chassidim Sefer. And the Chassidim Sefer. So first of all, he brings from his Rebbe, Reb Nosson Adler, that Reb Nosson Adler said that the reason why we don't learn Torah on Nittel is as a sign of mourning. Okay, he doesn't say what the mourning is, but presumably it was mourning for the massacres that would take place on Nittel. There were pogroms on Nittel. It was a normal thing because they're all celebrating and they're all riled up with their Christianity. And they're like anti-Jewish, so then it was a good time to make a pogrom. They anyway one of those dead, so like religious passion was a good excuse. So presumably that like once upon a time we didn't learn Torah because it was dangerous, and then Rosh Hashanah was simply continuing along those lines. That nowadays, even though it's not dangerous, but it's a day of mourning for all of the massacres that took place. Okay, so the Chassidim Sefer does not like this interpretation, because he says that, even when we have days of mourning like Tisha B'Av, or a person who's mourning for a lost relative, so there's things that you're allowed to learn. Yeah. For example, you're allowed to learn the halachas of mourning, you're allowed to learn sad things, and so why didn't he say that you're allowed to learn those things? Okay, that's a question that he has. And therefore, he has a very creative approach. As to where this custom came from, and that is that they didn't want that there should be a kitrug. They didn't want that there should be a how do you say kitrug? In heaven that there should be against something an accusation against the Jewish people. That because if we would learn, so what would happen? We would learn, and then after we finish learning, we'll go to sleep. Now Christmas, apparently, so they have midnight mass. Interesting, like the word Christmas. So the miss comes from mass. Like mass is like their davening. So they would have a midnight mass on Christmas night, and so the Chassidim Sefer writes that the Rabbanim didn't want that the Christians were so into their avodah zarah that they're getting up at midnight to do their idolatry, and we're sleeping, because it sounds like they're more passionate about their avodah zarah than we are about Hashem. So that's why the custom was The custom was actually to go to sleep at the beginning of the night and to get up at midnight and to learn Shtark at midnight, so there will be as strong as they are.
Who says that?
The Chassidim Sefer. Okay. Interestingly, in Breslov, they never made it. In Breslov, there's no talk about Nittel. So somebody asked Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Bender why in Breslov did they not make a thing of Nittel, and it says very simple, because in Breslov the custom was always to go to sleep in the middle to go to sleep at the beginning of the night. That every night in Breslov, the Rabbi Nachman's, like they said that a very basic thing in being a Yid is to get up chatzais, is to get up for tikkun chatzais. So in Breslov, there was always a custom that they would, as soon as they would daven Maariv as early as they can, they would go to sleep. They would get up at 12 midnight, and that's when they would start their day. So they were doing what the Chassidim Sefer wanted them to do. They were doing that every day. So it was never a thing. Like every day they were not learning for the first half of the night, and so there was never a thing. Okay, so this is that's the Chassidim Sefer's approach. According to that, obviously, there's no reason not to learn. There's nothing wrong about learning. It's simply that you should be learning after midnight, but there's nothing wrong with. So what's the thing? Where's the first one to say that there's something wrong with learning? So, well, I mean, in Chassidim it was always a thing that you shouldn't, but the one who explained it was the Lubavitch Rebbe. The Lubavitch Rebbe quotes from the Rebbe, the last one quoted from the Rebbe Rashab.
Okay.
Okay, the Rebbe Rashab said the reason why not to learn Torah and Nittel is not to give, remember, chiyus. Not to give chiyus to who? To the forces of evil.
Right.
Not to give chiyus, not to give life, not to give energy to the forces of evil. That it's such an unholy day, it's such an impure day that the forces of evil are just waiting for energy. And if we learn Torah, then we're giving energy energy to the forces of evil. Okay, so that's why you can't. Okay,
can get snatched.
Right. Okay, so that's the source. According to Chabad, that's the source of this problem, of this issue. Now, if that's the issue, now there's an interesting discussion which would also give us reason to be lenient. That is that there's a discussion. What do you do if Nittel falls out on Shabbos? Mm-hmm. Is there a custom not to learn even if it's on Shabbos? Okay, so there's a big dispute. In the sefer called Mishmer Shalom, he says that on Shabbos it's okay. In the sefer called Otzar Minhagi Chassidim, that it says that in Belz and Ziditshiv. Also the Shem Shmuel from the Avnei Nezer, the son of Avnei Nezer, says in the Tzakachov that on Shabbos Nittel was normal. They would learn Torah, and they explained that Shabbos is so holy that the holiness of Shabbos overpowers the impurity of Nittel, and therefore there's no problem that Shabbos, there's so much holiness in the world, so there's no concern that your Torah is going to give energy to the forces of impurity, because the forces of Kedusha are so strong on Shabbos. Yeah? Now, based on that idea, so there's many sources that say that this custom never applies in Israel, because Israel is also so holy that the forces of evil cannot have jurisdiction here. They can't have control over here. That's why Rav Vosner, Zochron Avachal Shevet HaLevi, so even though he was chassidish and he was when he was in Chutz La'aretz, so he kept Nittel. When he came to Israel, so he stopped. And this similar custom is brought down from Rav Yosef Lieberman, who was a dayan in Tzadi Ger. Similar idea is brought down from Rav Mendel Kasher. The same is brought down from a big Rav from 200 years ago named Rav Shmuel Heller, who was a big Rav in Tzfaz. On the other hand, so the Imrei Emes of Ger, so he said clearly that the custom still applies. Now in Chabad, there was one person that told the Rebbe that I heard that in Eretz Yisrael the minhag is not to do Nittel. So the Rebbe writes him in a letter. The Rebbe writes him that I'm not sure who you heard this from. I'm sure it was a I'm sure it was from a good source, which some understand means that he was joking, that when he said, I'm sure it was a good source, so he was being sarcastic. That like just because I heard something, so what? Okay, but he claimed that but if it's really true, like you see from that, well, he also doesn't think it's really true. If it's really true, it could be because Eretz Yisrael was under Muslim control, and therefore Christmas was never a thing. So because it was always under Muslim rule, so then the custom never started. Okay. However, they bring down that he actually that he wrote that somebody from Yerushalayim asked the Rebbe about customs of Nittel, and he answered him without saying that, but you're in Yerushalayim. He knew that he was living in Yerushalayim, and he told him the customs of Nittel the same thing as if he was incarnate. So, and that is the prevalent custom in Chabad that they do keep.
There are a whole bunch of Christians in Jerusalem that.
But
so is the law like about now learning Torah in the diaspora? Is it in the Shulchan Aruch?
No. This is something that it's something that it's never brought down. It's never brought down. It's the first time it's brought down. The first time it's brought down is in the Makar Chaim in the 1600s, which is very old. It's very probable. It's very probable that it was always a custom. It's just that they couldn't let the Goyim know that it was purposely kept a secret. It was purposely kept a secret, not written down, because if the Goyim would know that we have a custom not to learn Torah because we don't want, chas v'shalom, that any energy should be given to Christianity, then that would be a reason that they would hate us more and they would kill us. That's why it was a very well-kept secret. Understand? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's why the fact that it doesn't appear in Shulchan Aruch doesn't mean that it wasn't actually a custom. Okay. So now, so the Emrei Emes and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they thought that it does apply in Israel, even though Rav Wosner and you could argue that a person that in Israel, that just like on Shabbos it doesn't apply, so to in Eretz Yisrael it doesn't apply because there's so much kedusha. Okay, so that's certainly a reason to be lenient. Now, what I want to propose tonight is a new reason why it's okay to be lenient, and that is that the whole concept of Christmas as being a holy day is actually a bluff. In fact, if you Google when was Jesus born, so they have no idea. They have no idea when Jesus was born. So it never says anywhere in the New Testament when Jesus was born. So if it doesn't say anywhere where Jesus was born, so where did December 25th? I'm saying the Julian December 25th. Where did it come from? So it actually came from that there was this Roman pagan holiday called Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a holiday that they would celebrate Saturn, and guess how they would celebrate Saturnalia? With a tree, and giving presents, and having parties. And this is Santa. Santa probably like Santa is much later, I think. Santa with his Mrs. Claus and his reindeers living in the North Pole, and he comes into your house through the chimney, and he gives you presents if you're good, and if you're not good, then he gives you coals. Okay, right? And so
the original version is actually more scary, but
anyway, but the whole Santa thing, like, so giving presents was actually an old custom, Saturnalia, but the Santa thing came up much later, based on the Saint Nicholas.
Paganism.
Once there was in Mea Shearim, so a friend of mine was going in some Judaica store, and he saw some Santa Claus like figure. Uh-huh. And he goes to he's very upset. He goes to the sorry, was ist das? Was ist? Gedenkst, das heißt Chanukah Ruv. Das heißt Chanukah Ruv.
Who's Chanukah Ruv?
Santa Claus. He says, nein, das heißt nicht Chanukah Ruv. Das heißt Saint Nicholas. So they didn't, he had no idea. Didn't know that it was. Anyway, so Santa Claus is a much later addition to, but
it also
but
came
like
from a
but
pagan
having a Christmas tree is actually it's a pagan thing. It's from Saturnalia. Okay, so what happened? What's the story? That in the ancient Roman Empire, so they were pagan, and they had this awesome holiday. It was a week of partying. It was a week of partying, and they were allowed to all the rules. Like they would gamble, and they would it was just there was no rules. It was just partying and fussing, and I didn't hear. But it was just a really big party. So afterwards, when they started trying to spread Christianity around in the year 350 approximately, so like the people had a hard time giving up their Saturnalia because it was such a fun holiday. So that's why Julius the First, so he decided, guess what? Well, we have a holiday that's on the same day as Saturnalia, December 25th. You know why? Because our God was born on December 25th.
Right.
So he decided, he made up a birthday for Jesus, that it should work out with Saturnalia. So there's no this whole holy night. It's really just a Saturnalia. It's just a day of fressing, a day of drinking, a day of gambling, a day of giving presents, and it really has nothing to do with Jesus being born. So Jesus was actually not born at all on this day. So that's why there is no Sitra Achra. There's no. It's the whole thing. The whole thing is a bluff. The whole thing is a bluff.
So when people put
Isn't it?
Xmas, then they're just worshiping him, and it just isn't true.
Yeah, he was not born on this day. There's nothing to the day in the first place. Now, it could be that some of the rationale, like the fact that if it's the fact that they're worshiping, so like it's a day of worship, so then that would but I don't know if that's necessarily if Christmas that they're worshiping more than on other days. And I saw in the name of Rav Sternbach that nowadays anyway, the whole Christianity is more just watered down, and like in terms of the spiritual side of it, so there's not so much to.
Now there's. Mm-hmm. No. I feel like there is the same level of fervent idolatry. It's just a different god. They're now worshiping the god of money.
No, but that's not the same tumah as mamash idolatry. I want to end up by a very fascinating idea from Reb Sar Shalom Mibelz, the first Belzer Rebbe, that he understands the minhag of not learning based on the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov has a teaching to explain the Gemara. It says that the olam lo yehi nifta mechavera elu mitach dvar halacha, that when you depart, when you separate from your friend, the Gemara says that you should always talk about some kind of halacha. Okay? That you should never depart from your friend talking about anything besides halacha. Okay? So the Gemara says because that way he's going to remember you. You'll remember. He'll associate the halacha with you, and it'll enhance the relationship. It'll enhance the friendship. So the Sar Shalom brings from the Baal Shem Tov that he explains this on an esoteric level, that when it talks about nifta mechavera, it doesn't mean your friend. It means Hashem. Hashem is also your friend. So a person that's involved in devekut, a person who's really connected with God. So there's only one thing that will justify leaving this level of dvekus, and that is learning Torah. That when you learn Torah, that you have to descend from your dvekut, because if you're going to be in dvekut, you won't be able to think, you won't be able to understand, you won't be able to use your brain. Yeah. So the Baal Shem Tov explained that you're allowed to descend from a level of dvekut in order to learn Torah. But the Sar Shalom said, based on this teaching of the Baal Shem, that because this day is such a day of impurity, so now we need the full force ahead. We need the full force ahead. So that's why you need that. That's why the way to celebrate, this is most Chassidim. So what do they do on Nittel? They play cards. They in Chabad they say to tell stories.
just learn
some
Hebrew or
it's like
Yiddish
it's in some Chassidim, like they would do I don't know, like fundraising. They would do like just anything but learning. But they do chesed.
Christmas is a good day for fundraising.
So, but in Bells they said no. This is the day of dvekus. This is night of dvekus. No learning, just dvekus. Anyway, but this is also assuming that this is a day of spiritual impurity, and I'm proposing that because the truth is that it's a big lie. By the way, speaking of lies, that there's those that say that like April Fool's Day. So what's the thing with April Fool's Day? That said.
They used to start the calendar on April 1st.
I'm not sure about. I didn't hear about that. I heard a theory that what do you do on April Fool's Day? You lie. So like in Hebrew it's called Yom HaSheker. So because if Jesus' birthday was December 25th, so 9 months later was the day of his conception, and the day of his conception that they think is that God had a baby, so that his conception would be April 1st. So that's the day of the lie.
Oh.
The day of the lie that God conceived. So that's April 1st. So that's how. So, but the whole thing is really garbage because he wasn't really born on December 25th. And because he was really we don't know. We don't know when he was born. It doesn't really matter when he was born. That's also relevant. Like when I used to give my class on Capricorn. So I talk about, like, you can listen to my class on Capricorn. I talk about how it's the day of like the Satan and the Esav. And by the way, it is interesting that Yeshua is brought down. That Yeshua is the same letters as Esav. It's written in the Torah, Ayin, Sin, Yud, Vav. So Esav is the same letters as Yeshua, meaning that Yeshua, Jesus was somehow an embodiment of the evil of Esav, like the arch enemy of. And we spoke about this. We talked about Edom. So Edom is also referred to as Rome, and the essence of Rome is the Vatican. So there's a connection between Yeshua, between Jesus and Esav. So I used to say that, like, who's the most famous Capricorn that ever lived? So obviously Jesus. But I stopped saying that because I realized that it's really a bluff, that he actually wasn't born. But so there is some connection between Esav and Jesus because of that, because the Tevis is connected to Esav. However, like it's not really the day that he was born, and therefore the whole holiday is really not such a religious thing. There's no basis to it. It's all just it's what to make of it, and so mostly what to make of it is just like cultural. It's not such a serious thing. But anyway, so certainly, that's why I think that it's perfectly fine to learn Torah nowadays because of all the aforementioned reasons, and everybody should just have themselves a merry night. All right, l'chaim, everybody. Have a Seres Tavas.